Okay. All right, Ruth, take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Doug. And I'm really excited to be talking about education this evening with everyone. It's such an important topic and one that's in the news now every single day. The Connect 4 series, a product of the Alumni Council, is a wonderful way for alums and all those interested in Marietta to learn about the great work that's going on there. So today we're going to be talking about education. And as Doug mentioned, I did not take any education courses at Marietta College. Both of my parents were educators. My dad was a chemistry teacher. My mom was a guidance counselor. So I was firmly decided I was not going to go into education. That lasted 2 years. After I graduated with a degree in biology, I worked in a microbiology lab. And the next thing I knew, I was teaching middle school science because that's really where my heart was. And I have spent my entire career working in education. Currently, I'm an education consultant. I coach new school superintendents. I actually spent time with second-year school superintendents today. And I also do strategy planning in a variety of school districts in Massachusetts. I was a school superintendent, curriculum coordinator, teacher of gifted and talented, sixth grade science teacher, and I think I did preschool as well. So I'm excited to hear what's going on at Marietta today, and I know you will be too. So we're going to first introduce our Connect, or actually, as Doug said, Connect 5. So because it's education 4+1. And we're going to let's hear from our graduate who just graduated this past weekend. So Izzy, if you'd introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what you're going to be doing, and what your concentration was at Marietta. We think you can remember, it was just a couple days ago.
Yeah. So as she said, my name's Izzy Reinard, and I just graduated Saturday. I am from New Matamoros, which basically when people ask me, I just tell them that I'm 45 minutes from Marietta because it's a lot easier that way. So I'm local to Marietta, but I'm going to be in the fall. I'm going to be teaching 5th grade at Caldwell. And so my time at the college, I've spent concentrating on special education K through 12, and then early education pre-K to 5. So I'm right at the end, as high as I can go in the general education. But I'll be concentrating with language arts. And so in the meantime, I'm tutoring this summer kids with reading and stuff like that. So fun stuff.
Okay, thank you. And that special education background is going to help you tremendously.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we want to hear from Kirsten, and she's quite a recent graduate as well.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Carpenter. I actually graduated a year ago yesterday. I am from Cambridge, Ohio, and I actually came back to Cambridge, Ohio, where I currently teach 5th grade math throughout the whole day. So I have 3 different classes and we do math in all 3. While I was at the college, I studied K through 12 special ed, and then 4 through 9 math and science, and then also teacher leadership.
Great, thank you very much. And then we have our established alum, Tyler. So Tyler, if you'd introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tyler Bates. I am the Dean of Students and Athletic Director at Loudonville High School, up near Mansfield and Ashland. I also run the online academy for about 30 kids in the district. I taught geometry for 8 years after graduating from Marietta in 2013. And this is my 10th year at Loudonville as an educator. So have gotten into a little bit of everything so far the past decade.
Great. Thank you very much, Tyler. And we want to hear from Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Borich. I graduated from Marietta College with a certificate in physical education and had difficulty finding a position in that. So I went back to Marietta College 2 years later to get my elementary certificate, and that is in grades 1 through 8. I have my master's from Marietta College, master's in education. I've taught mostly 2nd grade, but also physical education, kind of back and forth between those two. And I'm currently teaching at Beverly Center Elementary. I live in Beverly, Ohio, and I am in a team teaching position.
Oh,
So
good.
we have all 30 second graders in one classroom, and two of us are switching back and forth between doing direct instruction, as well as we have the support of our intervention specialist and our title teacher.
Great. Thank you very much, Kathy. And we're very fortunate today to have Dr. Tanya Judd with us. She is the McCoy Professor of Education and Leadership Studies. So Dr. Judd, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hello. I know many of you all on here. It's nice to see so many friendly faces. I was saying to Tyler before we started, I'm starting to feel a little bit on the older side of things when the established alum is somebody I taught. So I'm currently the chair. I have the immense shoes to fill from Dr. Dottie Erb. If any of you all were familiar with her through your time, she's still working with us with the department. But I think it's my 6th year as chair. Prior to that, and I still teach a lot of our adolescent young adult classes, especially related to social studies licensure. With Gamma Perucci, I helped create our teacher leadership certificate program that we're very proud of. It's one of 2 undergraduate teacher leadership certificate programs in the country. Something else that we do uniquely and well here at Marietta College, and that's another passion of mine. And I do a lot of work with our students in their capstone and something that they do called the EdTPA.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to look first really at what's going on at Marietta now. So Dr. Judd, if you could really give us an overview of the current department offerings, what's the most popular? What do you see students really interested in today?
Thanks. If you wanted me to, I could share the PowerPoint that I use at our open houses, or I can just talk. So those of you that have me know I have no trouble talking. So you might have to shut me down a little bit. But one of the things that for those of you that have graduated a little bit longer ago, that is new and different for us, is that we are fully what we call dual licensure or blended program approach. You heard both Izzy and Kirsten talk about being special ed and general education. So that's something that a direction that Dottie started us in with our first program that went dual, which was what's now the primary license. If you can't, it's quite a challenge to keep up with the grade bands in Ohio these days. They're talking about changing them yet again. But currently the grade band is pre-K through 5th grade. There's not an early childhood program any longer. So we are a pre-K through 5th grade program. All of the students in what we refer to as our SEED program, which is special education elementary dual, get licensure in both the pre-K 5 gen ed portion of things, as well as in special education.
Great.
Now, Izzy and Kirsten both graduated with the K-12 special ed. This group that graduates this year is the last that has the K-12. We've moved towards a grade banded special ed approach because that was something that was approved a couple of years ago as well. So we're really excited about it. It speaks well to our philosophy that we believe everybody should be prepared to teach all kids. And I know it was mentioned, harder to find a job in certain areas and so forth. A lot of our graduates, Kirsten's kind of an exception to the rule, but many of our graduates, their first position is in special education. That's where the jobs are. It's a good way to get into the district that you're particularly interested in. Izzy, is yours gen ed too? I know you're language arts, but I thought you were doing something with special ed also.
Yeah, but like my interview initially was for intervention, and then they're like, this is open. So I slid into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we tell them is, we hope that they really love the special ed side of the house as well. There's a lot of positive things that you can do there, but at minimum, it makes you a much better general education teacher, having that focus and preparation on the special education side as well. So after we did this, what we now call the SEED program, we added the middle childhood. So we have a middle childhood 4 through 9 program. They get the 2 content areas, because that's currently the requirement in Ohio. And then they have the special education portion as well. The newest things that we've added is we still have, and I know I see Maria on here. She's one of our adolescent young adult folks. She's AYA history, so she's getting a degree in history, and then adding the teacher licensure as well. Just this past fall, we were approved to offer a dual in high school as well. So those AYA students in history, English, math, and all of the different sciences can add special education as well. It's a little more challenging in terms of the size of the program because all of those folks still major in their discipline, and that we find that to be a very important piece of it. So Maria, for example, is going to graduate with the traditional AYA program, but people now have the option to add a special education licensure on it as well if they choose to. With the other programs, it's built in. You can't separate one from the other, but the AYA, because of the size of their majors, it's an option for those students to choose to do that or not. The college has really supported us in this journey. In terms of our philosophy, again, we want everybody to be prepared to teach all kids. So students in the AYA program, the college is allowing them to take up to 3 classes during the summer for no additional cost because just so that they can try to stay on track to graduate in 4 years. So the cabinet gave us that commitment. We were very excited about that level of support.
Right.
The newest thing, because we keep seeing adding lots of things. I guess there's still a couple more, Sarah, don't let me forget anything. But one of the other new things is we have just added a physical education and special education dual program. And that's something that we're really passionate about. We call it wellness education. For one thing, our faculty member on the phys ed side of things is really passionate about the idea of wellness. So physical education, with the idea of, and he likes to describe it as, it's not your grandfather's PE. So it's not about climbing ropes and dodgeball necessarily. Everything in PE can have an educative purpose, just like in every other classroom. So he's bringing a lot of social emotional wellness into the curriculum for that as well. And we're really trying to reframe PE as wellness education. So I know we have a PE educator on here. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And, part of it is, I know you said that it was difficult to get your first job. So you came back and got your elementary licensure. So it definitely is going to help people get that first position if they have the special education training. But there is such a need to blend those two and have that understanding as well. So we're really excited about that. We're definitely the first blended wellness program in Ohio, and we're fairly certain that there isn't another one nationally. There's a model that we use that blended PE and health, and we used a lot of what they were doing as a structural model, but they don't have special education in that licensure pathway as well. So we're continuing to innovate and do some really interesting and very cool things. A couple of other newish things as well. We have a post-baccalaureate program for the first time. So if you know anybody, and I know Sarah's already dropped the link to it in the chat. If you know anybody, particularly career changers that, they were doing something else for a while. So I graduated and I wanted to be in biology and I got sucked into doing what I was born to do. Ruth, you give me hope. My son is adamant he won't be an educator, but I still, it gives me a little bit of hope when I hear those stories.
If it's in your blood, it happens.
That's what I'm thinking. His dad's an educator too, or was an educator as well.
Yeah.
But so for somebody in Ruth's position, we have this post-baccalaureate program that they can add, not the content coursework, but the pedagogy and education coursework that they need within a calendar year and so forth. And many of them could also potentially be hired. And I'm looking at you, Taylor Myers, if you ever decide that you want to come out of retirement. He didn't finish the licensure program, but he's been teaching, so he doesn't really need it, but I'm teasing him a little bit. But they can add the courses that they need. And it's tailored to what that particular student needs. So Taylor took my Gen Methods class, for example, so he wouldn't need to take that Gen Methods course if he was doing our program. So if you know anybody who'd be a great teacher that's thinking about doing something different, have them contact us. They don't have to be in Ohio. It's an asynchronous online program. We have a very small number of scholarships still available if they're planning on teaching in Ohio. We got some grant funding from ODHE and ODE to do that for people that are committed to teaching in Ohio. But after that, it's still obviously something that other people can do. There's just obviously a tuition, a cost to it as well. So we're really excited about doing that for the first time and really trying to address the teacher shortage, which is real.
It's terrible.
It's real. It's great for anybody who's interested in being a teacher because the jobs are there without question. Izzy, I think last count maybe had 3 on the burner at one point. Three,
Four.
is it 3 or 4? 4?
Or yeah.
She's fantastic, so I'm not surprised about that, but that's how serious the jobs are. I this year I was getting contacts all throughout the academic year. Usually it was, the first couple months, do you have anybody, but it was all year this year, and I expect that to continue for some time. So our graduates are really they're popular folks because they have that special education training. It makes them very versatile. We believe that very much in that philosophy. I know I personally, as a high school history person graduating from a school in Florida, I was teaching kids with special needs right out of the gate, and I did not feel adequately prepared to do that. So we're really excited to offer that.
Great.
Let's see what else. We're also offering College Credit Plus. So this is something else you guys can help us recruit for. If you know of a high school student who's interested in becoming a teacher, we are offering online asynchronous classes, just 2 of them right now, to try to get them the feel for what it's like to be a Marietta College student. Not quite the same since it's online and asynchronous, but trying to get them in the fold, so to speak, and get them excited about becoming a teacher, especially a teacher with Marietta College. So that's something that we're doing. They can sign up for those, and they can contact me, and I'll drop the PDF in the chat at some point about that as well. And the final thing, I think, and then Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, something that's new to some of you that have graduated a little long ago or that are just checking us out. I mentioned the undergraduate teacher leadership program. That is, I think, going into its 13th year, but I should have kept better track. I know Maria is in that program. Kirsten's a graduate of that program. Taylor's a graduate of that program, and Taylor is a great model for what we want. If somebody doesn't actually end up teaching, he's used those leadership skills in more things than I could potentially count in his career. And it's not been that long. I'm trying to tell myself that because it makes me feel less old. But he's done a lot of things with that teacher leadership certificate. And we're one of 2 in the country on that as well at the undergraduate level. There's lots of teacher leadership programs at the graduate level. Yeah. And I did forget one other thing, and I swear I will be quiet after this. We also, what would be new to many of you, is we have an educational studies program, which would have been great. I keep picking on Taylor, but educational studies would have been great for him while he was here. He had decided that classroom teaching wasn't necessarily his path. And so he's concentrated on his history, and I think did some political science pieces as well. But we have a non-licensure track for people who decide that, classroom teaching isn't what I want to do, but I still want to work with kids in different capacities. So that's been very exciting. That program's been growing as well. And we have some people that are just showing up and saying, not necessarily leaving the teacher ed path, but starting there and say, I want to work in nonprofits with youth, and lots of other different pathways that prepare them. And it's one of those smaller majors that pairs really well. We've got somebody right now that's doing psychology and educational studies because they want to be a guidance counselor and those types of things. So we keep innovating and doing. We probably need to do to hit a hard stop on some things. We have our accreditation visit coming up. So the last pitch that I'll make is for those of you that are graduates. I think Sarah's dropping a link to our graduate survey in the chat. We need that data for our CAPE review, and we're also going to need to do some focus groups soon, and also when the CAPE folks come and visit us meaning virtually in April. So we're really proud of what we're doing. We're accredited right now with CAPE, which is the Council for Accreditation of Educator Preparation. It's a mouthful. But they take a deep look at what we're doing every 7 years and give us some suggestions. They might give us some areas for improvement and so forth. Right now, the last time that we went through CAPE, we went through with flying colors, and we're hoping to repeat that. But we know it's a growth process. And so now I swear I will.
Oh, you did a great job. Thank you. It's exciting to see how many different things are going on. And as you said, there's such a need for teachers today. And it certainly seems like the education department is stepping up to that challenge. So we're going to now turn to Izzy, since she's our most recent graduate of all. We'd like to ask you about your last year at Marietta, and what did you really take as courses, and particularly this last semester?
You're asking what courses I took?
Yeah, what you did this past semester, what you've been doing as you finished up your work at Marietta. Yeah.
Okay, so which I don't know if all of you know this, because not every program does this, but we started our student teaching our placement started in the fall. So I knew my kids when I was going in the spring. I had a good idea of who and what I was going to be walking into every day. So I went to Washington Elementary and taught second grade. I split my semester up because they only have one intervention specialist. So we tried to like split our time evenly to make sure we're getting all the experience with our intervention specialists and in the general ed classroom. So to begin, I did my second grade gen ed with the classroom teacher to do my ed TPA, which is my capstone class that I have with Dr. Judd, as she talked about. So that was one of my classes. And then in the spring, I did intervention. The other class that I took would be our cultural diversity class. What is it called, Dr. Judd, exactly? I just call it my diversity class, but
Gender and culture in the classroom.
yes. So, and then we went on a trip our last week of class. We were in Akron for the week, and we went to a private school up there that it was Julie Billier, and they focused on having students with special needs. And so that was a really cool experience because, you know, I think a lot of us, speaking for my peers and myself here, I think a lot of us found a deep passion for special education and that intervention role. And being there allowed us to like really, I think, gain more experience, whether it was something we didn't want to do or if it was something we wanted to do. And so we came back like with our eyes open to see different students in different lights, because our placements that we had only gave us so much. And so that was a really cool opportunity to go do. And also on the trip, in the evenings, we went to an art museum and we went to the International Welcome Center. So we did more things than just going to school all day. We did get in that diversity piece too with the Welcome Center and talking with a migrant family and stuff like that. So that was really cool. One thing that I will say that I will probably forever talk about that happened this semester was I got to meet and talk with Governor DeWine, which is also really the reason, I mean, due to Marietta College and our awesome reading professor, Dr. Cromwell, which she's all about the science of reading. And I don't know if many of you know about the science of reading, but it's a thing that's happening in Ohio, and it's probably going to be happening in more states if you don't know. And so he came and he visited Washington. And so I was on like a round table with the governor and his wife, Fran, and we were all there, and it was a really cool experience. And I always tell people when they ask me about how it went, I'm like, no, like he was like listening, like he genuinely wanted to know what we thought. And so that was a cool experience for me to feel like I was able to share my voice, and I felt like he was genuinely listening to me and everybody else in the room too, just because I talked about how my experience at the college, you know, learning the science of reading and implementing it in my classes and going into the field and my teachers doing it allows me to have so much more confidence going into the classroom. And when I'm in my job interviews, I'm asking them, do you know the science of reading? Do you apply the science of reading? What does the science of reading look like? And so reading and intervention has become a huge passion for me over my time at Marietta. And so this semester really, I like to think, allowed me and has encouraged me to use my voice, even though like I haven't had a full year, like I haven't taught yet. Like I'm not on my own, but like I'm confident in what I'm doing and I feel like I know what I'm doing. So I have a voice at the table. And I will say at the end, like just as a little quick tidbit, he did write me a letter, and I was like, I'm so happy about it because I'm like, he handwrote this letter and he called me Izzy and he said like it was like Mike and Fran or something, and it was just very heartfelt, but it reiterated to me he was listening and he wanted to know, you know, what it was like from a teacher candidate perspective compared to the ingrained teachers that are teaching reading the way that they've been taught, and they are teaching it because they don't know the other way, I guess, to teach it maybe. And so
Yeah.
they're going through the training.
Yeah.
Ruth, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Oh,
if it doesn't, let me know.
that was great. And I just the experiences that you have had, I think your fifth graders for the fall of 23 are so fortunate that they're going to be having you as their teacher. And to have that experience to be able to speak to the governor, the science of reading is everywhere. It's certainly alive and well in Massachusetts, but to have someone who truly understands what it is, that's going to be a real gift to your students. So thank you. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job of answering that. So now I'd like to hear from Kirsten. She's just been out of school 1 year and is just about finished. I think 3 more days to go, ending her first year teaching. So let's hear about your experience at Marietta and about your preparation and how your first year has been.
Okay. I really think Marietta prepared me as much as anyone possibly could have prepared me for coming into the classroom. You'll always have your first everythings that you're like, oh my goodness, I was not prepared for that. But there's no way to prepare for certain things. While at Marietta, one thing I was very thankful for was how close I was with all of my classmates and my professors. I still to this day, I'll send a message to some of my classmates, or I was texting with Dr. Ryder not that long ago, like, hey, this is what's going on in my room. Do you have any suggestions for me? So I really do appreciate that. I still do pull out a lot of my papers from when I was at Marietta. I'm like, what should I do with this? I am a gen ed teacher. I do not have any students with documented IEPs, but I do have a lot of students in the process of being identified. So I do not have a special ed teacher in my room, but having that background and that licensure for me, I can best serve them that way from having general ed and special ed. Another thing from being at Marietta that I think has helped me this last year is just, I don't know, I just feel like I was really prepared. Marietta is, everyone knows about Marietta and their education department, and having that teacher leader certificate has also helped me stick out amongst a crowd of other people.
That's great.
So,
Were you involved in some extracurricular activities during your time at Marietta in addition?
I was not. I just went for school. But I will say also with that teacher leader certificate, Foundation of Appalachian Ohio recently did a grant for educators. Going into the field, they did a grant, you just have to stay in Appalachia, Ohio for the next 5 years. There were 132 of us, I believe, total that got it. And there were 6 of us from Marietta College that received it. So
fantastic. Yeah, that's wonderful. Great. So you're almost finished with your first year. What surprised you the most?
I will be honest, there were a lot of surprises that I was not ready for.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think what surprised me the most is the lack of that support from the homes the kids are coming from, which there really is no way to prepare for that. But I think we tried a lot in my classes with my professors of what to do if you don't have that support and how to best advocate for your kids when they need you. Yeah. No, it's so critically important too. So thank you for sharing that. Now we're going to hear from Tyler, who's been out of Marietta since 2013. So he's had quite a journey. And what was your experience at Marietta and how has that taken you where you are today?
Oh, my experience at Marietta was great. I always tell anybody that wants to be an educator, Marietta is a great place to go. We definitely leave there prepared, I think. I'm very grateful just for the college in general. I left high school with some terrible study habits, and everything came pretty easily to me in high school. I didn't really have to study, didn't have to prepare or be organized. And I can honestly say my professors, and especially those in the math and education department, were very patient with me. They helped whip me into shape. They didn't let me quit. There were many times as a freshman I wanted to leave and not even finish at Marietta or maybe think about doing something else. And they stuck with me even to my junior year, where it was time to get into the education program, and I didn't have the grades I needed in some of my other classes to kind of meet some of the requirements. I got in on a little bit of a probationary period, and that was just because the education department didn't give up on me and had some faith that we could get it done. So I'm really grateful for that. I'll never forget just the late nights staying up and doing my lesson plans. I don't miss that at all. But we really did learn a lot about being disciplined and getting things done on time and showing up every day, to our field placements and to our student teaching. Mine was at Belpre. My senior year, I was with Debbie Decker. She was a Marietta grad. And I just felt so lucky to be able to go into her classroom every day as a senior and learn from her, and feel like I had someone from the long blue line in my corner that wanted me to succeed and help me not just graduate, but also be successful for years to come, if I was lucky enough to find a job. And the other thing I would say that I thought was really interesting at Marietta College, and it's proven to pay dividends for me now upon graduation, was just the way that we worked with the Career Center at that time. We learned how to write cover letters. We made resumes, and I can honestly say it seems simple, but I have people asking me all the time to help them with their resumes because they've seen the ones that I've turned in, and I just learned those at Marietta College. And even getting our mock interviews videotaped and going over posture and how to answer questions and what to expect and things like that. I just think those were things that were kind of next level for us as educators there that I've been able to use no matter what I'm interviewing for, whether it's a teaching job or not. And those little things like that are things that I really appreciate about the education department, because they put so much detail into making us the best that we can be, not just trying to get us through with a degree. So I'm grateful for that, and always indebted to our education department at Marietta.
Were you involved in extracurricular activities when you were in Marietta, Tyler?
I came to Marietta as a freshman on the men's basketball team. I didn't play after my freshman year. My senior year, I was actually like a manager for the women's basketball team, and we ran a child cancer fundraiser my senior year that was pretty big in the spring. So that took a lot of our time there. Other than that, just playing intramurals and working in the rec center.
Yeah, kept you busy though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Thank you very much. Kathy, let's hear from you about your experience at Marietta, what you did there, and how that's taken you where you are today.
Well, like I said earlier, when I was at Marietta, for the first 4 years of undergrad, I was in physical education, and I really feel like it did prepare me very well for that particular field. I don't know if people are familiar with the name Mary Jo Herdman.
Yes.
But she was my advisor, and my freshman year, I was just like in tears most of the time after coming out of her office. She was very, very hard, but yet as I progressed through college, and by the time I was a senior, we became very good friends. I was fortunate to have had her as an advisor because she definitely knew how to push me to try to make me be the best that I could be. Going back to what was said earlier, like with bringing back the physical education and wellness, I love sports, but as a physical educator myself, when I was in elementary PE, I tried to always make certain that it wasn't about sports. It wasn't about competition. It was about, more of the wellness and having that throughout your life, being lifelong learner and to be healthy. Obviously, the experience that I had just in the education department with the certification of 1 through 8 was very different because I came back after graduating for 2 years. So I was trying to get through it as quickly as what I could. And I took some classes in the summer. And, I mean, hearing the recent graduates, how it has changed is just amazing. I mean, I obviously think it's, for the better because they are, I think, better prepared than probably what we were years ago. But I would say that, Marietta College overall, just the whole atmosphere and everything that I gained, not just academic, but the professors, knowing that the professors really cared. If there was something you were having trouble with, if you went in, they were always very willing to help. They knew your name. It wasn't just like you were a number in their class, because classes are small enough, you get to know them. And I think that closeness that developed was huge. And also, another important piece for me personally was my experience with athletics, and my coach that I had at that time. She's still to this day a huge impact on my life and taught me a lot of life lessons that I still carry with me throughout today and in the classroom as I teach. So,
Great. Thank you very much. So all of you spoke about your education and your experience. You went to a liberal arts school. What was the value of a liberal arts education to you? And anyone who wants to answer, or what did you take from that that's informed your teaching, or even as you're moving into teaching when we look at our new teachers?
Well, I think as educators, if we're not curious about as many things as we can be, we're doing a disservice to our students. And I think one of the reasons all of us are probably educators is because we like to learn and we try to gain as much knowledge as possible. And taking anthropology and astronomy and all of the classes like that was challenging at times, but there were some really cool and interesting things that we got to learn that were outside of the scope that maybe some other students get at some other colleges and universities in Ohio. So I just looked at it as we're really lucky to have all of these opportunities at Marietta that we do in so many subjects. And I think as educators, it's important that we keep trying to find ways to do that, whether we're at the school or, graduated working in the profession.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Tyler. How about the rest of you? Any particular class, because you were in a liberal arts school, that really made a difference for you, or that you might not have taken if you'd been somewhere else?
I don't think I would have taken a dance history class had it not.
That must have been very interesting, I would think.
Yes, it was very interesting. And, I, looking back, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to take this class, that class. But then as you get a little bit older, or you're out in your profession, it's very easy to see then not everybody has the same interests as you. And that's okay. And I think it helps definitely make you a more well-rounded person and able to communicate with those people who have interests that aren't maybe in line with exactly what you like, or even your students. You're going to have students who maybe aren't passionate about sports, but love something to do with the arts. And, having somewhat of a background in that can help you, I think, to better communicate with them and maybe guide them in a direction that would be best fit for them.
Right. It's a great example. Thank you. How about Izzy or Kirsten? Anything jumps out at you? I mean, you're recent grads, courses that you took that might have been out of your comfort level, or an interest that you think will be informing you as teachers?
I think that Kathy really hit it on the head. They say, you hear it all the time, I feel like you're a well-rounded person if you go to a liberal arts college. But I think that has truth to it. There's two classes that like stick out to me vividly. And that would be like, I have a music class and I didn't have music, and I try to avoid music as long as I can. And then in college, I had to take an arts credit, so I did music. And it was like music history. So now I feel like I know a lot more about music than I ever thought. And I think, to what Kathy was saying, I feel like I can relate to kids a little bit better now about music just because I took that class. And at least it makes me think like that. And I'll give it a shot. And then the second one would be biology. And I took biology my freshman year. So that is when like COVID hit initially and we switched virtually. And that was, I was dreading biology just because my brain doesn't work like that, is what I kept telling myself. I can't write a lab report. Like, I'm struggling to write this lab report because he's going to, nitpick it. And I wanted, as an educator, or at least as Izzy, I am a perfectionist and I'm trying my best to get at least an A or a B at this point. And knowing that I was like turning it in and he's going to criticize everything. But it gave me a good perspective of like, okay, be more concise. You don't have to give him all of this like fluff, I guess they could say. And as well as like understanding how people that I had lab with, just seeing how their mind works, because clearly my mind did not work the same as theirs, but getting to watch them in action was like really cool. And to understand like and see the value of science and doing experiments, because as I went into the classroom like this fall, our students just got a science curriculum and they are growing pea plants, they're growing corn and their windowsill, and they're literally so excited. And they're literally just measuring it, like seeing how much it's grown. But there's so much joy in that. And I think that class has opened and kind of changed my perspective a little bit, and to help me try to push in those extra or the different content areas. So for me right now, it would be reading and like trying to talk about science and reading, or talk about the arts and reading. And I guess that was my takeaway, I guess.
Oh, that's great. And just seeing how other people think is going to be very valuable for you as you begin to work with children. So great. How about you, Kirsten? Anything jump out to you?
So I was kind of thinking along the lines of Kathy and Izzy. One class I had to take for gen ed that I was like, when in my life will I ever use this, was a photography class. And we spent quite a few classes talking about looking at the same object through all these different lenses. And I actually took that from my photography class into real life a couple weeks ago. I have at my building, it's amazing and I love everything about it. But we have 80+% of our students live below the poverty line. So a few weeks ago, I had bought all the kids candy. They were all so excited, and a student came in and stole some of the candy. So I'm like, okay. And I made myself step back. I'm like, I need to think back to my photography class. I need to look through all the lenses. Did they do it to make me mad? Did they do it because they've never had a ring pop before? Did they do it because they really wanted one and couldn't afford it at home? Were they starving? So like, I think that's something that could really help me, because, had I not had that class, I would have never had that idea to think through all the different lenses to see why did they really do this.
Great, thank you. Those were all really great examples. Dr. Judd, as we're going to have a few minutes for questions, but where do you see the education department going? I mean, clearly education has changed dramatically from over the decades from when I was at Marietta. We're now in a post-COVID environment. We heard about the science of reading. What do you see as on the horizon for the education department?
Thanks. So I'm glad you mentioned the science of reading. As you mentioned, the visit with Governor DeWine and his wife was amazing. And I think we're well positioned to be ahead of the game versus a lot of other institutions, because we're on the right side of the reading wars, so to speak. If you've followed any of that in the news, it's a really interesting sort of shift that's happening and happening relatively quickly. We actually just lost our primary literacy faculty member who put us in this position of being sort of leaders in the science of reading, because another state is investing very heavily in the science of reading. They were able to pull her away from us. So I think maintaining that strength in our literacy core as we develop, I think our commitment is to continue to have dual preparation programs. We're still planning on, again, keeping our standalone AYA programs, but as we add new things, because it's become such an important part of our philosophy. And frankly, I don't even know that we could uncouple a lot of the things that we put into our programming that make folks better prepared to teach special education.
Yeah.
So I know that we want to continue on that path. I've been asked a lot lately about why aren't we doing a reading endorsement? Some of you that graduated longer ago, we used to have that actually at the undergraduate level as part of what you graduated with. But they shifted that at the state level to a graduate only program. So once I get through this Cape visit with the support of the wonderful team that we have next April, if we took on something new, I think having a reading endorsement, because we're so well positioned for the science of reading to help people that are being put in the position. The governor has put a lot in his budget bill that's currently out there, investing in the science of reading, and it would require current P12 teachers and specifically P8 teachers and anybody who teaches special ed to become knowledgeable about the science of reading. So there is a marketplace issue that we have there that we could help serve. Because I'm getting a lot of graduates that are asking me, should I go to this program or should I go to that program? And there's still a lot of programs that are not science of reading and won't necessarily help them with that approach. We've thought about some graduate programs, but those are a little bit down the road. We had one for a while and we retired it for a variety of reasons. And so that's something that we may go back to as well.
Right.
Sarah, did I miss anything? I also failed to mention earlier, and I should have, I apologize. We do have a music education program at the college. As I was going through the different programs, they're housed in music. So they don't normally, and not that they're not important, they're wonderful. They've got 6 wonderful graduates this year. So if you know of any music openings, certainly let us know as well. But they're housed in a different program department. So I don't necessarily always, they come to mind off the top of my head. So I apologize for that. Sarah, did I forget anything about future directions that I should have mentioned?
No, I was going to have you share how many interns we're going to have in the field next year, and I texted you the answer.
Oh, I was going to say, I think I know, but I don't want to get it wrong. 5 secondary, 4 middle childhood dual, 12 primary dual, and 3 music education. So
Great.
Tyler knows I'm not a math person, but I think that's 24.
Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Doug, do we have some questions in the chat?
We do not, but I think it's important to remind people that it's not just about questions. If you have comments or stories that you want to share as well, by all means, we're all ears.
I do want to recognize that we have a past student government president on here in Taylor, and the current student government president, I think she's on here. Maria's still on here. So that's something we got education representing in SGA as well. So shout out to you two for that.
Congratulations, Maria.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've got a question from Brittany.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. Yeah, I have a question. I joined late, so I apologize if this was already discussed, but I believe Kirsten was talking about kind of the lack of support a lot of students have at home. And that means a lot to a lot of different people. It seems that, and I'm not in education, but it seems like we hear a lot of these stories of a lack of support at home, a lot of misconduct in school from students. And I'm just curious, like, as an educator, how do you think you help that type of situation? Because obviously you're not home with them, but you are with them for 8 hours a day. What do you see as a solution, right? I just think there's a lot of turmoil and I don't know. I think kids are kind of acting out a little bit as kids do. And so just curious as to your perspective.
I know for me in my position, I do from our classroom management class, I learned a lot and I've got a lot of compliments on how well I managed my classroom this year, which like pat on my own back as a first year teacher. But I try to form a relationship with them from what I've done and has worked. I form a relationship with them so that they know that someone's there to support them and I'm always cheering them on and I always want the best for them, whether they have that at home or not. I have found that if they know that I care about them and I support them, they give me better academic work. They don't act out as much. We have a lot of kids that don't like to come to school, so they don't just show up. I've found once I've been able to form those relationships with those kids, they do tend to come to school. I have one kid, I have him from 10:30 to 1:15. He will show up at 10:30 and at 1:15 he's sick and has to go home for the day. So I think just forming those relationships has definitely helped me throughout my first year.
And I'm sorry, but I just wanted to interject something very quickly. And I know Kirsten and Izzy might be able to speak to this, but something else that we've been doing for the last few years is if any of you are familiar with mental health first aid, we have 2 faculty members that are certified trainers for mental health first aid, and that's become part of our curriculum. So all of our teacher candidates, and if you're not familiar with it, it's sort of like CPR training, but for putting, and actually I probably should let them describe it because they might be able to talk about it a little bit more robustly, but in essence, being able to not necessarily treat or counsel students, but making sure you're aware of signs that need to be paid attention to and connect students and families with resources as needed. So I don't know if either one of you want to talk about how that's influenced the work that you've done with kids.
Sadly, this year I did have to put some of that work that I learned last year into play, which I was really hoping to never have to use. But it definitely, being mental health first aid trained, it gives you, definitely doesn't give you the power to help do things that, you need all your counseling degree and all that stuff for, but it helps you know the correct words to say and when. Like what questions not to ask, what questions you need to ask, what areas you don't ask them about, what's okay to ask them about. So I was very glad to have that also along with everything else that I've had, so that I don't want to be the person that says the wrong thing trying to help and making it worse.
Yeah. I would kind of like to say something related to that. I think that what Kirsten said is definitely true. I mean, with the kids, they need to know that someone truly cares about them and is there for them, will be honest with them, is a constant. And a lot of times I've found with our second graders too, with some of the ones who maybe have some behavior issues, like they have to build an amount of trust with you and you with them. I teach at Beverly, and our superintendent, Dr. Starcher, who is also a Marietta College grad, has done a fantastic job in our district at having mental health services available in our buildings. Like in Beverly Center, we have 3 counselors who are there all the time. Hopewell, and they pull kids out, they'll work with small groups. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of things that they can do, because let's face it, when you're trying to get through all the curriculum and you're trying to deal with these other issues, it becomes very difficult. Our whole problem as educators, we always say, is like, there's not enough time in the day. There's not enough time in the day to get through everything. So, these people who are trained are there daily for us, for the kids. And then we also have an SEL curriculum that was put in place in our district this year. And we devote anywhere from like 15 minutes to a half hour daily with our kids. And that's at every grade level in the elementary building. So I think that those things being in place for us in our building are huge. As I know, I've often said throughout my course of my teaching career, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to be an intervention specialist, which thank goodness that's something that is required now, because we have in second grade like 10 kids that go to our intervention specialist, but they're with us the majority of the day too. And kids that come from these, bad home life situations, a lot of times do have major academic concerns. And how are you going to reach them? And the other thing is, like a psychology degree. Yeah, there are times where I've joked, oh my goodness, I feel like I need a psychology degree to be teaching. So to have some of these other things in place have been huge. And I can't thank Dr. Starcher and our administration enough for trying to make certain that the teachers and the students have these things in place to help all of us. So
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that, Kathy. That was
Mhm.
great. Doug, are there any more questions for us at this point?
There are not.
Well, I think we really want to thank our wonderful participants. There's nothing more important than taking care of children. And we're so fortunate that Marietta's education department's doing such a great job of really taking that so seriously. And that's evident in everyone who's been through the program. So we just want to thank you so much for being part of it. We hope those of you who are in attendance learned a lot more about the wonderful things going on at Marietta College and how they're making the world a better place. So thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you for moderating, and Doug and Erica and Sarah for helping organize all of this for us. I really appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mhm.